Good evening. All right, that sounds good. Nice and loud. How we all doing? All right, we're glad to be here in Flower Bluff, and hopefully, is there anybody here from the island? Okay. Oh, Alex, that's right. I walked in with you. Okay, we have a few from the island, and we get the Flower Bluff. So we're here tonight. This is our second community meeting, and there's 3 more. So you can go to those if you'd like. You don't have to live in the district to go to them. But tonight, our host is Councilman Suckley. We're here in City Council District 4, representing the Flower Bluff and Island area. So we have 2 things to hear from you tonight about. We're going to do short presentations, but then we want to get feedback from you, the community, on 2 proposals the city is working on. One is the bond program, Bond 2024. Every 2 years, the City Council puts to the voter a bond program for basic infrastructure like streets and parks, public safety facilities. So 2024, coming up here this November, we're in that cycle. We have a list of candidate projects that we'll show you, and Jeff Edmonds, our engineer, will show you that. This year, the bond, because of our capacity, is $175 million. So a little bit more than bond 2022, but costs have gone up and needs are there as well. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is to share with you council's baseline concept on our sales tax initiative. We have sales tax that can be renewed, a total of 1/4 cent, 2 1/8 cent propositions that we have, or 2 1/8 cent amounts that we have had. So those can be reauthorized, and that would be on the ballot as well as November. We want to talk to you tonight about what council has the biggest consensus or kind of the baseline concept on that proposal as well. So those are 2 items. So tonight is a public engagement session. We want to hear from you. We're going to, we're going to try to keep our comments as short as we can because we want to hear your feedback. And we've been in City Council District 2 already tonight. I think we have 1 or 2 more this week, and then a few finishing up next week. I would say if we do speak, we're going to try to speak in the microphone because this is on Facebook and other social media sites live. So if you can't make it tonight, you can watch this live at the nice not confines, but the nice arrangement of your home or wherever you're at, relaxing. And that's part of the city's business model of being open and transparent and inclusive. So with that, I'm going to introduce City Council District from City Council District 4. I was going to say Mike, but Dan Suckley. He's going to say a few words, and he's going to introduce some of his colleagues who are here as well tonight.
Thanks, Peter. So, like Peter said, I'll keep it short so we can get on with the presentations and end up hearing from y'all in some question and answer sessions. Thanks for coming today. Council Lady Sylvia Campos is here from District 2. And we've got Jim Klein, at-large council member, and the mayor is planning on being here, but she is not here yet. And then we have a lot of our staff here, including some of our leadership in the city that I'm sure I'm going to miss some, but we do have our police chief, Mike Markle, and our fire chief, Brandon Wade, both here. So thanks for coming. I also here is our assistant city manager, Heather Hurlbert, coming in right now. So with that being said, I will turn it over, and I will stay around afterwards also if there's any other additional questions or comments at the end that I can try and assist with. But I'd like to introduce our Director of Engineering, who will head down the path on the Bond 2024 list, Jeff Edmonds.
Thank you, Dan. Well, let's see. Let me get my clicker. So my name is Jeff Edmonds. I'm the Director of Engineering Services, which doesn't really describe exactly what we do. We really don't do the engineering. We're really like a program management office, and we manage the execution of the city's capital improvements program. And a big part of that is the bond program. I've been doing this job. I'm in my 10th year here, so this is the 5th bond program I've been involved with putting together. As I mentioned, this is going to go to a referendum. These are general obligation bonds, which is one of the financing tools that we use for capital projects. And these have to go to the voters to be approved. We usually do a 2-year cycle on this. For the last 10 years, we've been using a 2-year cycle. And this typically finances activities that don't produce a revenue stream, unlike things that are water, wastewater, which are financed with a different kind of bonds called revenue bonds. Let's see, some notable projects in District 4 that have been financed with GO bonds in the past. We've got things like Laguna Shores Drive, improvements on Waldron Road, some of the improvements to the police substation right behind us. McCardle Road is actually in District 4 now. We've got beach access roads that have been done with bonds, and let's see, Ennis Jocelyn Extension was another one that was done with GO bonds. So this is our current proposal, and the way this works, we start with kind of a blank sheet of paper or unmet needs, and then as we go along, it gets more and more resolution, and probably by the time you get to late June, ink needs to dry, and we need to finalize the brochure, and so we're not quite in that dry ink phase, but we're getting a little bit better into focus to what the program's going to look like. And like the manager said, we're looking at a $175 million bond election, and in consultation with our financial advisor, they feel like that is comfortable within our ability to finance it. Now, a couple of the big differences from Bond 22, the streets amount is about the same. The big change from Bond 22 is parks and public safety. And we'll go into some details on that, but you can see the parks is almost $15 million more, and public safety is almost $35 million more than Bond 22. This is how that breaks down in terms of projects. There's 22 street projects. Am I blocking the screen for some of you guys? Let me move a little bit. I got to be able to see it too, unfortunately. I'll just refer to my paper. But then I need my glasses. About 53% is streets. So the streets percentage has gone down a little bit from what it was in the past. And the recent bonds, if you went back to like bond 2014, that was 100% streets. And so we're meeting some additional needs. We're putting more into parks, more into public safety than we have in the past. So there's 22 street projects, 11 parks projects, 7 public safety, and 2 other library community center projects. And it's important to note that Bond 24 can be accomplished without a tax increase. So one of the questions we get asked all the time is, where are you in your past bond programs? And if you look at Bond 2020, we've got 88% of those projects that are either under construction or complete. Bond 22, we're still getting those out. One of the big ones on that I think is of interest to a lot of folks in District 4 is the Yorktown project, which even though it's in District 5, if you're going that way out of District 4, you're using Yorktown Boulevard. That's going to be widened from the Mud Bridge to Rodfield. And we just opened bids on that last week. So that one's going to be into construction real soon. You're going to see that jump up in terms of the construction number. But 91% of those are in design. We're producing bid documents, and those are going to start rolling out very quickly. So next slide. These are the street projects in District 4 that we're proposing. So as the manager mentioned, Holly Road, which is in District 4, and this is a program that really started around 2019 timeframe when we did the first part of Holly Road from Rodfield to Ennis Jocelyn. This is the next part of that, and on the last bond we put the design, and then this is the construction dollars. So that's a pattern that we're adopting now. If a project is large or complicated and we're not likely to be able to get design and construction done in a 2-year cycle, we'll put the design on one bond and then the construction dollars in the subsequent bond. Graham Road is one of those where we're putting design money in only. Terra subdivision, that's an area where the roads are really bad. They're all failing in there. And that's design and construction. So we anticipate we'll be able to complete all that work within the 2-year cycle. And then we're putting $1 million into JFK Causeway area improvements that supplements funds that were put in there on a previous bond. That's a total of $18.7 million for the district. Now these are the parks projects. Commodore's Park is $5 million, and this is a continuation of a master plan that was funded on the last bond. So we put kind of front-end money for planning and design, and this is going to fund some of that construction. The type of improvements that we're talking about there are trails, parking, lighting, pickleball fields, fencing. Perry Place that's the area. They're kind of soccer fields that are used just on the other side of the Oso. That's former Navy property, and we're proposing to construct some ball fields there. Probably have some unpaved parking with that amount of money. I don't think we can do fully improved parking lot, but this will be some phased implementation on that. Dimmitt Pier boat ramp. So this is for front-end costs on a public boat ramp in Flower Bluff. I'm sure everybody knows you've got public boat ramps out at the JFK Causeway. You've got public boat ramps on the island. The feeling there was we need some public boat ramps in Flower Bluff, and that this would be a good site for it at the Dimmitt Park. So this is a total of $8 million for parks funding. These are the public safety projects. So as I mentioned, we are breaking projects up and putting design and front-end money, land acquisition, that kind of thing on one bond, and then the construction in the second. So those first two projects, we had front-end money on bond 22, and this puts construction dollars in. And that's Fire Station 10 and Fire Station 8. So those are both in Council District 3. Fire Station 9 is design only that we're proposing for this bond, and Fire Station 11, which is actually in District 4, that's on Airline Boulevard. And we're implementing, over a 10-year span, we want to be able to replace half of the fire stations. So we're moving along on the implementation of that program. These are the police projects. We're calling it the Northwest Police Substation. You might have seen it referred to as the Cal Island Substation in some of the previous literature. That's the new name. That's going to be located at West Guth Park, and the design money was funded in the last bond, and this is putting in the construction dollars. There's a Far South Police Station. Also, we had design dollars in the last bond. That's going to be located at the Del Mar Oso campus. And then we're putting design money in for a new proposed police substation that's going to be in the vicinity of La Palmera Mall. So that's a total of $15 million for the police. On the library and public facilities category, so the Garcia Library is co-located at the Caffey Middle School. And the ISD is having issues with having the public have access to the campus. So they want us to move that. And so we're proposing to combine that with some other functions, community / senior center. And we're going to be looking at a site for that. Ideally, we'd like to find a site that would be convenient to both districts 5 and 3. But that's TBD. We have to go through that siting and real estate process. But this for front-end money for design and possibly land acquisition. The second project there is, I'm sure everybody's familiar with Heritage Park down near the ABC. We have a lot of historical homes there that are repurposed for housing different activities. And we've received some CDBG funding for upgrades to these, but it's not enough, so this is going to supplement that CDBG funding with some bond funding. That's a Liechtenstein house, the Little Martins house, and the Tex-Mex Railroad house. This is a calendar of events going forward. We're at the second of these town hall. Like the manager mentioned, there's 3 more of these town halls that are going to happen. And then in addition, we're going out meeting with a whole lot of stakeholder groups. So there's a whole lot of those that are yet to come. So if you're in one of those groups, you'll probably be seeing a variation of this same presentation. So I'm going to go through the rest of the bond that's not focused on this district. Lower, middle, upper Broadway is a project that we're having to break into kind of bite-sized chunks to get done. We're going to start at the lower end because we've got not only pavement problems with that roadway, we've got slope stability issues and these historic retaining walls that need to be stabilized. So we're going to work from bottom up, and we're budgeting $10 million for that. We're putting $3 million to supplement some of what's been budgeted in past bonds on North Beach for roadways, and there's going to be a big project that combines the drainage feature that we're working on with some of the improvements to the roadways over there. And then the Yorktown project from Oso Bridge to Waldron, I'm sure is very interesting to folks here. We are considering that what we call a citywide project, which means it doesn't count against the allocation to the district. So the way we do that is we pull out projects that we think shouldn't really count against the district, and what we call rough proportionality, which is how the dollars are spread across the districts. Things like Police Training Academy, it was in District 5, but it definitely count against District 5. Yorktown, we felt like, that's kind of shared between District 4 and District 5. On the District 5 portion, which is on the other side of the Mud Bridge, that was treated as a citywide project previously. It depends if you live over here and you're headed that way to work, you're using that, or vice versa if you're over there and your kids are going to Flower Bluff ISD, or you're working out at NAS, Army Depot, you're coming across that bridge coming this way, or going both ways. So anyway, that's not counting against the district allocation, but we're putting money in there for front-end costs on that, and then the design is going to have to come in subsequent bond elections. Rand Morgan, that's another design project. That's up in the vicinity of the Toloso, Midway, intermediate school, and that area has experienced a significant amount of growth. It really needs to be widened. It's for most of the length, it's a 2-lane road. Sam Rankin is one where we're leveraging some funding that the port received. This is a grant that they got for rebuilding that roadway, but it didn't include the underground work. So this is going to fund the storm drainage that's associated with the port's reconstruction of Sam Rankin from Port to I-37. South Staples Access Road, that's adjacent to a recent bond project on Staples, and this is where we've got these sort of frontage roads, and they were in terrible shape, so this project is going to address those frontage roads. Alameda, where it says construction only, that's one of the projects where we funded the design previously. So that's a big project that the design was funded on the last bond, and then this bond would add the construction dollars. And then the next segment from Doddridge to Everhart we're going to start the design on that. So what you see, and I'm sure folks that have been here for any length of time, you've seen these corridors that we focus on, like for example, Staples, which they'll do a segment each bond referendum, and then we're getting towards the end on Staples. Almost all of those have been reconstructed. I think we have one remaining, but now Alameda is a focus, and we're moving through that one segment at a time. Bear Lane, this is kind of an industrial high truck traffic area. There's several companies there that have a lot of truck traffic. Plus, you've got the RTA has their bus maintenance facility there. We're going to do design for that project. Allen Crest, Shannon, those are kind of collectors, I would say, sort of residential collectors, also design. Let's see, I don't know if I'm going to read through that whole list. I'll hit a couple of the highlights. Cimarron is a section that was intended to be fully widened, improved curb and gutter, underground drainage, and that stops about at Morelos Elementary. And as you proceed south, you have ditches on one side and kind of a rural cross section through part of it. Part of it you've got curb and gutter on one side, and this is going to design upgrading that to the urban transportation plan cross section. Rod Field is an interesting one that is going to, the Rod Field that we just opened, ultimately that's going to be a boulevard cross section that straddles that major transmission corridor there. This is going to hit it and get that designed. And ultimately that's planned to connect across the OSO to the proposed regional parkway. And the only one here in District 5 that has construction was this trail connectivity, which had design and construction. It was going to connect some missing trail segments over there where we have trails along drainage ditches and where they don't quite connect up. Okay, and these are some parks projects that are not District 4 focused. So the OSO Golf Center is actually in District 4, but we figured that would be that shouldn't count against District 4 because it's a citywide project. Texas State Aquarium, they came to us and they said when the bridge goes down, when they're doing the demolition, it's going to take their parking out for a period of time. So they're developing another parking lot to use in the while that's going on, and they asked the city could help. So this includes $2 million for parking lot improvements. The Northside Hillcrest Neighborhood Aquatic Center. So that's kind of a good news, bad news story. So the good news is TxDOT's going to help us fund that, but it's not an option. We've got to do it. This is part of the I think 3 or 4 party agreement associated with construction of the Harbor Bridge. So it's something that we're compelled to do, but we are going to be able to take the city's funding, match that with a TxDOT funding, and hopefully create a kind of regional facility that will be able to take event, swim meet type of things. Labonte Park, there's a real need for additional ball fields out in that area, so we're going to put 2 ball fields, softball and a baseball field, at Labonte Park, back where the old Cunningham water treatment plant existed. And Sherrill Veterans Memorial Park. This is a phased implementation approach to a master plan. You've probably seen some of the media that we've got the submarine sail that I believe it's already arrived here. I'm not sure where it's at, but it's a USS Corpus Christi, and the plan is to install that there. And there's also a helicopter that some of you guys might remember when we had a helicopter over there a long time ago. And this is going to put it on a pedestal mounted in the air. And there's a lot of other improvements to that park that are proposed. But this is funding some of that front end activity to the tune of $2 million. Cole Park parking lot expansion. So we've been making a lot of improvements to Cole Park. The playground's being redone, of course, the Cole Park Pier, splash pad. So with all of the amenities we've been adding is creating an increased need for parking. Greenwood Baseball Complex, this is supplementing some funding that was on the last bond because we're not quite able to do everything we'd like to do there. So there's $2.75 million to contribute to that program. Commodores Park, There's $5 million for that. I think I mentioned these, the Perry Place, the Dimmitt, these were covered previously. Billwitt Park, there's $2.75 million for continued implementation of the Billwitt Master Plan. And that's it. So at this point, I would be happy to take your questions. Yes, sir.
I have a question. When is, second, we're going to get the microphone?
Oh. Should be, yeah, so the remote folks can hear.
I want to know when the another exit from Flower Bluff into Corpus is going to happen.
Another exit.
Right now, we've got SBID and we're going to have Yorktown, and we're getting ready to shut down Yorktown because of the construction.
Well, it won't be shut down, but it will be more congested.
Yes, it will.
So I wish I had a good answer to.
They're getting ready to build Holly Road as a footbridge for that park on the other side. That sounds all wonderful and good, but a footbridge to what?
Well, if you got a bicycle or something, you could use that.
Yeah, to come over to Flower Bluff. Big deal.
Yeah. Now
We need a bridge right there. That's a bridge that we could have had that would have gotten more people in and out of Flower Bluff in an emergency situation.
Acknowledge. I think the regional parkway might address some of that. Of course, like I mentioned, that Rodfield Road extension is ultimately if you're familiar with the regional parkway, it's planned. It's in the MPO kind of long-range plan, and it's to provide another connection out to the island. And you would also.
That's going to be basically Yorktown.
Well, it'll be south of Yorktown. It'll be basically parallel to Yorktown.
So you're going to go in onto King Ranch property?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And King Ranch is okay with that?
Well, they participate in this study.
Okay.
So I will say that sounds like a long-range
That is very long
need
range.
to, I mean, that and to get another connection. That's not something that we could do in one bond.
That's going to be very long range and very expensive.
Right. Well, so I'll acknowledge the need, and we'll take that for advisement, and we're aware of that being a desire. Flo. All right, wait for the mic. Wait. I can hear you, but wait for the mic.
I have a question and a comment. On Commodores, the $5 million, does that include the $1 million from the previous bond?
No, ma'am.
So,
That's in addition.
okay, so there'll be $6 million going into Commodores, right? Okay, that's great.
Okay.
That's fine. I just was curious.
Yeah, Heather, do you know how much is in the TERS? So there's the current bond 2022 had $1 million for design. and
Right.
There's still money available to start the design. This is recommended in the bond 2024, and then the Island TERS has probably as much or more for Commodores Park.
Okay.
So there's a master plan that has been done with community engagement, and that includes things like a nature trail, a pond for birding, a swimming pool, a gymnasium, and a community center, and shared restroom. So it's a tremendous investment, and so the bond will be about less than half of that, and then the TERS would be the remainder.
Good. That's
Yes,
great.
ma'am.
So I have another comment, because it's not in there. So you have two PrAC members here, you have city council, and I'm here on behalf of the skateboard community, and we would like to see Renoski Park expanded. There were several of us that were instrumental in even getting that park, and it's been 10, so it was an $85,000 investment. I believe Mike Markle will tell you, kids do use that park. They want to skate. We have a big skateboard community, and it just always seems to get overlooked. And I'm not asking for, every time I was talking to Mr. Klein, I said, we don't need $1 million design and all that. We just need concrete where kids can skate. So that's my request, is to add on to the Renoski Skate Park. It's a beautiful park. It needs to be utilized more. And truthfully, our kids cannot get downtown many times. When they get there, they can't skate that bowl. That was the whole purpose, because that is a very difficult skate park to skate.
Sure, and I'll add in there, so this year, actually, we have about $100,000 that we're investing in the parking lot area to help provide additional parking at Ranowski. And so we are, Parks and Rec is looking over the next several years to be able to invest smaller amounts into the improvements along there. So that is on our radar, and we are looking for available funding for it.
Great. The other thing, thank you for the upgrades to our tennis courts and our pickleball. That's phenomenal. My other question, Jeff, are you going to widen Graham or just deal with what you have right there? I mean, the improvements.
I think we're going to widen it as much as we can. In places where it's ribbon pavement, we, a minimum, need to put wider paved shoulders in there. So we've really got to study it to know what we can fit in there within the right-of-way. Yeah, it is going to be a challenge, but we love challenges. Oh, and on the skate park thing, we do have another skate park for all you skaters in here at West Guth Park. It's not quite open yet. It's not really stopping people from going in there. There are about a dozen people when I was up there the other day. We're trying to keep them out, but it looks like it's going to be real popular with those folks. Any more questions? Oh.
I have more of a comment. I'm Linda Lindsay. I'm one of a couple of people that are here, and Flo is one of our mentors on PRAC. But I just want to say, for those of you that are out here, and I live both here and also across the bridge, so we want to work with all of you. But we have a PRAC meeting. It's called Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, and it's volunteers from the city, from our community. It meets the second Wednesday of every month at 5:30. At the basement of the City Hall. And a lot of our projects, Parks and Rec is great about listening to us and then taking it up the chain of command to City Council and to the City Manager and to the Mayor. And so if you have comments or suggestions, whether it be positive or negative, we would encourage you to come. I'll stand around afterwards and be glad to give you my phone number. But it's a great way for us to hear roots on the ground. Flo taught us to do that way, and then Mike and I came on, and we're trying to continue to do that. Our job is to listen and then to suggest to both City Council and to Parks and Rec and city managers what our community might want when it comes to Parks and Recs. So we're a tool for you, so please use it. Again, I'll visit with anybody afterwards and be glad to give you more specifics. But thank you. In a lot of these projects, for example, the Renoski parking lot, a couple of things that are over in the Commodores initially came, some of the things that happened at Cole Park initially came because people came to PRAC and said, this is what we'd like to see, or this is something that is not safe, or this is something we would like enhanced. West Guth Park, the skate park, it directly came from some of those ideas. So it's a great way. The city has done a terrific job of getting a process in place. And so as citizens, we want to make sure that we take part of that. Thank you so much.
Okay, any more questions for me? Okay, if not, I'm going to turn it over to the next.
So on the Holly Road project, right there at Ennis Jocelyn and Paul Jones, are y'all considering putting a traffic signal at that four-way stop at Ennis Jocelyn and Holly? Because I live by there, and I travel there on a daily basis, and I've seen many near misses of accidents of people hitting each other head on. And with a school being down the street, it gets really congested there in the afternoon and then morning rush hour.
Well, I'll tell you this, we haven't completed those designs, we haven't put it out for bid, we will take that under advisement.
Please do, because that four-way stop is very dangerous during rush hour. Yeah, right there at Ennis Jocelyn and Holly.
Okay. Any more questions or comments on the bond? Okay. I'm going to turn the floor over now to Heather Hurlbert, city manager, who is going to discuss the sales tax proposal.
Good evening. Thank you for coming out in this lovely weather that we're having. Thank heaven it's raining. Let's get the presentation up. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is the reauthorization of sales tax. So talk a little bit about the background on local sales tax, look at some of the allowable uses under the Type A statute, look at our current authorization, looking at those baseline reauthorizations that are being proposed by City Council, and then kind of talking about what our process is walking through this. So local sales tax, the state allows up to 8.25 cents of sales tax to be charged per each $1 of those goods and services that are subject to sales tax. So of the 6.25 cents, of the 8.256, 6.25 goes directly to the state, and then 2 cents is eligible to be used for local purposes. So here is a diagram of where our sales tax that is collected in the city limits. So 6.25 does go to the state for state operations. Half a cent goes to the RTA for transportation, administration, and operations. 1 cent goes to the city into the general fund for general city operations. And then that final quarter of a cent is divided up 4 different ways. And so first we have 2 projects that were approved by voters back in 2000 for improvements to the downtown seawall, and then for the development of the multipurpose arena, or the arena that's at the American Bank Center. Then back in 2018, voters approved another 1/8 cent that goes to what's called Type B, or 4B, which is for economic development, affordable housing, and streets. And then the final quarter cent goes to the city's crime control district, which provides another funding source for special needs and for personnel and equipment and stuff for the police department. So that is a rundown of where all of the sales tax that is collected within the city goes. The state of Texas receives about $445 million that is budgeted for fiscal year 24. The RTA receives about $35 million. For general operations within the city is about $71 million. And then the remaining 1/8 cents produces about $8.9 million for each of those 1/8 cents. So this is just a visual representation, with half of it going to city operations, a quarter of it going to the RTA, and then the other quarter being divided 4 ways for those other purposes. So what authorizes the city to be able to use this for 4A or 4B? So under the Development Corporation Act of 1979 allowed cities to be able to charge a little bit of extra sales tax and allocate that for economic development or for no growth. So the type of things that the sales tax can be used for includes quality of life improvements, convention tourism and entertainment facilities, professional amateur sports and athletic facilities, affordable housing projects, water and sewer facilities, parking and transportation facilities, and projects that overall develop and expand new and existing business enterprises or retain primary jobs. So the funding cannot be utilized for residential streets, residential areas, or for general city services. So really it's to encourage that growth within the city, provide that infrastructure, and provide those quality of life amenities. So currently we have 2 projects that are funded through this authorization for sales tax. So these were both voted back in November of 2000, and they were for a 25-year term for the life of those projects. And each 1/8 cents produces about $8.9 million. So project number 1 is the American Bank Center Arena. So the voters approved 1/8 cents to be able to go to this project. It was primarily, we issued debt to be able to build the arena. And so it was for the debt service along with capital needs within the arena. Now, we've been very fortunate in the fact that the debt service for this is between $2 and $3 million. Right now, it is producing about $8.9 million, so that allows us to take that money over and above the debt service, reinvest it back into the arena. Now, it's only authorized for use within the arena, so it cannot be used for any of the other facilities within the American Bank Center. If something breaks within the convention center, we can't use it for that. Selena Auditorium, it can only be used within the arena. So then the second project is the downtown seawall. So back in the early 2000s, there was a need for some major improvements to the seawall. So the city issued debt, did those improvements. And again, this has been fortunate in the fact that our revenue has continued to grow. And so the money has been used not only for the debt service for those major improvements, but also has been invested back into the marina, back into the water gardens, back into the art museum and the arts center. And so we've been able to do some other projects with this that complement or they're part of kind of that seawall structure. So these two are expiring. So the 1/8 cents that goes to project number 1 is expiring in September of 25. The 1/8 cents that goes with the project number 2 expires in March of 26. So the importance of that expiration is that those have to be renewed, they have to be reapproved by voters and applied to another project. So we took this back to voters back in November, and their voters chose not to approve the projects that we brought forward back in November. So since then, the city managers met with city council members. We have had almost over 40 meetings with different stakeholders and community groups to receive their input on what they would like to see done with the sales tax. So on February 27th, the city council discussed the reauthorization and developed what we're calling a baseline or proposed projects. Then again, on May 8th, last week, we had another workshop to discuss it again, refine some of those ideas. And so what we'll be discussing is that baseline. So the first project is for the American Bank Center complex. And so this would expand the use to not only the arena, but also for the arena, the convention center, and the Selena Auditorium. But in addition to that, we would also propose that this be used for improvements to the city-owned facilities within the C district of the Sports, Entertainment, and Arts District. This includes the 3 museums, the Harbor Playhouse, and the Water Garden. All these facilities are city-owned, and this money would be reinvested back into those cultural entertainment assets. So as you can see, all of those facilities are very in close proximity with each other, and they really help complement each other and create synergy in that area. So then for the second project that is proposed is to continue using the 1/8 cents for the downtown seawall to include those structures that are the actual seawall structure as we think of it, that goes up and down shoreline, kind of from McGee Beach down to the port, but also the breakwater, the salt flat levees, the T&L headland masses, and the flood control pumps. So back in the 1940s timeframe, that was all built to work together. The breakwater, the land masses, the seawall, along with the pumps and the salt flat levees to protect that downtown area. So we propose to continue using it for that, but then also adding some citywide flood control and coastal resiliency projects. So we have a lot of areas that still are prone to flooding. And so we propose to expand this to be able to use that on some of those projects, the large projects that are either prohibiting or limit growth opportunities. So those include, we worked with our Public Works Department looking at our master plans and looking to see where those areas are. And so we identified these 7 different projects that, and I'll show you on a map in a second, that really stretch across the city as a whole. And so these would be improvements to FM 624, improvements at the Turkey Creek area, the drainage improvements to North Beach, the second phase, Corpus Christi Bay shore erosion mitigation and protection, the Clarkwood Ditch and Oso tributary area, the Williams Ditch area, and then Oso Creek. So all of these are in areas that we have commerce or could potentially have commerce, and we feel like this is appropriate use. These are projects that would be eligible under that. So in addition to that, not only would we do these projects, but then set aside money on an annual basis to continue the protection of the seawall. And so we're working on a study right now to really identify what those needs are and how much money would need to be set aside on an annual basis to make sure that those immediate needs and long-term needs are satisfied and taken care of. So right now, we're estimating about 73 million over a 25-year period would need to be set aside and used as those needs come up on the seawall. So just a representation of where the projects are. So they stretch all the way from Cal Allen down, all the way down to the Oso Creek and the Williams Ditch area. So another thing we heard from voters when we took it back in November was that at the time we proposed to not have a defined term on it. So there was the request to have a term. So we're proposing a 25-year term. That would allow for projects to be developed and then be able to issue debt if it's something that we wanted to do more quickly versus cash and pay-as-you-go type of funding. So this is just an example of what we feel that the revenue that will be produced over these different terms by one of the 1/8 cents. So over a 10-year term, it could produce 95 million, a 20-year term, 200 million, and a 25-year term, 256 million. So these are forecasted with just a very small growth assumption, and it's not a time value of money. It is just strictly a cash flow. So looking then, so where we've been and where we're going. We've already met with council. We've been discussing with stakeholders. We're going to continue to meet with our stakeholders. We're having our community engagement meetings, which you're at tonight. We will be launching a community survey, hopefully by the end of this week. And then we're going to continue to bring that information in, refine those uses over the June timeframe, take it to City Council for a final proposed with a proposal that will be going to the voters. Continue with that continuing education, call the election in August, and then the election day will be November the 5th. So this is a list of the upcoming community engagement meetings, which include these type of meetings. This also includes the impact fees, which that's something else, another city initiative that's going on right now. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm available for any questions or feedback.
Yeah, I had a question. I was watching the budget meeting today the city had, and it sounded like there was a mechanism for some of the sales tax money to go to repair residential streets and sidewalks. I'd like to hear more about that. I would be much in favor of that, and I think that bond would actually pass in November. Thank you.
Sure. So what you're referring to is Section 327 of the tax code. So it does allow for use for city-owned streets, and those could be commercial or residential streets. It is a 4-year authorization, so it is not a long term. It would be a shorter term. It would need to be renewed every 4 years. It is something that we will be discussing more tomorrow at the city council meeting. There wasn't a consensus at the workshop last week to move forward with that, but we will be our council will be discussing it tomorrow.
I actually went downtown and went to a lot of those places. It's a beautiful package. So I haven't kept up with this much, but if it doesn't pass, where does the funding come to maintain those entities that you were talking about?
So the American Bank Center is eligible to use some of the hotel occupancy tax to do those maintenance and improvements. We would have the cultural assets, the museum, the water gardens, things like that. It's going to be a little more difficult to use hotel occupancy tax because a lot of times those visitors are more local versus from out of town. So it would be dependent upon the general fund or the downtown tax increment financing zone to be able to fund ongoing improvements to those facilities.
So my comment, Peter, is I hear more and more and more praises about the art walk, the Friday night situation. People are loving it. So the slide where you show all of the different entities that you're funding, I personally think people are visual and they need to see that so that they can actually understand where that funding is going. Because when you get down there and you go to that art museum and stuff, it's actually amazing, the whole big picture. But I like that slide, and I think people can relate with that slide.
Good evening, Johnny Filippello. I'm a Flower Bluff resident, but also the CEO of the Buccaneer Commission. And having come right off of our event, we encountered serious issues within all the buildings there at the American Bank Center, not because of lack of effort by the staff there, but the buildings are aging with COVID-19 shuttering those buildings. They probably age 10 years faster than they normally would. There's significant improvements that do need to be made at the American Bank Center complex, but also the museum was dealing with just trying to keep the air conditioning on to maintain their certification by museums. So there's a ton of resources that need to be put into getting these facilities maintenanced and maintained. And for the notion that, oh, that's only in the downtown district, whatever number that is, there's 1 million viewers that come to the American Bank Center, or visitors that come to the American Bank Center every year. 77% of those are local. Graduations, buck days, concerts, ballet, you name it, happen at that facility, all of our life events. And we really need to make sure this doesn't turn into the old county courthouse just a few blocks away. So those are my comments.
Okay. If there's no more questions, I'll turn it over to the city manager to close us out.
Okay, great. So that concludes our public comment for these two items, and we were taking notes over here, plus we have it recorded. So we're making sure we capture across the city what our community is saying. And as Heather said and Jeff said, we'll share this with the full city council once we complete the 5 meetings. And we actually may add a 6. I was talking to Councilman Suckley here a few moments ago, but we may do something just on the island, get that group, because we only had 2 people here from the island. We want to make sure we capture them as well. So keep an eye out for a 6th one. We may go right down there as well. So with that, that's it for this meeting. We have city council tomorrow if you want to see more of what we do. And then is there one more meeting this week, you guys? I think there's Wednesday? Yes, sir. Okay, Wednesday there's one more community meeting. In what district is that? In okay, that's in City Council District 5, so not too far from here at the new OSO campus. So you're more than welcome to go to that if you want to hear this again. And with that, the mayor did come in just a little bit late, leaving our workshop. I wanted to see if she wanted to say anything concluding, Mayor, and then we'll let Councilman Suckley close it out. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here. Yes, I'm sorry, we ran a little bit late and I ran a little later, as you can see. But thank you. This is a great turnout. I think I counted about 30 residents roughly. This means a lot to us. You've heard the quick version of kind of what's happening or what we're proposing. It's not the end version. You're the end version. And that's why we come out. You know, we can't reach everyone in these community meetings, but many of you know we are accessible through email, we're accessible through phone, we're accessible through in-person, appointment. The whole point is that your voices be heard. This is your money, these are your tax dollars, and we're representing you in which way they should be spent. And there's a whole lot of ways. And so we want you all to know that what we're presenting is a baseline, as was mentioned earlier. It's exactly that. But let your voices be heard. We appreciate you being here. That's part of the process. And please tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family to reach out. And these aren't just, District 4 is not just for District 4 residents. Tomorrow, as mentioned, we've got another one in 5, which is off of Yorktown, we said? Yeah, Wednesday. Wednesday. Delmar? Right? Yeah, off of Yorktown. It's a straight shot for all of you. So feel free to, join us there, or again, invite others to come. Every single one of them are citywide. Again, thanks. Thank y'all for having us. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to wrap it up, I did want to mention back to the bond information that Mr. Edmonds shared with us is the city, whether all of us agree with it or not, is they try hard for proportionality between council districts. So we've earmarked approximately $175 million to be used for this bond in November. And so if you divide that amongst 5 districts, that's what they try and proportion for each district. So you see all those numbers up there, and it ends up being that each district gets 30-something million dollars in aggregate project value. So just so you kind of understand why it's divvied up the way it is, how the puzzle comes together. But I think for District 4 is, we also are going to benefit, hopefully, with Yorktown being on there and Yorktown being a citywide project. So that's important not only for Flower Bluff, but I bring it up that it's also important for District 5, and it's also important for the island and Port Aransas, because in the event that we have a catastrophe, any sort of a tropical storm where people are evacuating, the people in Flower Bluff are typically going to go out one way, and that's SPID. And unless we get Yorktown expanded and improved throughout all of Flower Bluff, we don't really have many great ways to get out. So right now, if we're trying to use SPID to evacuate, everybody else that's in Port Aransas and Potter Island is going to be piling up on SPID to get out also. So it's also a big safety issue. So I'm glad that we're able to get it on there for design, and then hopefully a subsequent bond or other funding mechanism, we can get it constructed. So to the mayor's point and the city manager, thanks again for coming. I'm going to stick around for a little bit. I think some others will stick around. So if you have any more questions or comments, feel free to catch us. One more item from...
I just got to make one correction in case anybody's going to go to that meeting Wednesday. It's actually City Council District 3 is Wednesday. Yeah, not 5. That's all right. Yeah, so City Council District 3, but it's at the Choke, what we call the Choke Canyon Room, which is at one of our facilities, our water, CCW water facility. So that's at 2726 Holly Road. Okay, so on Holly Road, 2726 Holly Road, Choke Canyon Room, City Council District 3 area. Yes, okay. Our water tower, I'm not sure if anybody's here from CCW. End of June? Councilman Suckley saying the end of June, the new one comes online. That's the new water tower that we put in service, replacing one that was in pretty bad shape. So good, okay. Thank you all for being here tonight. We'll talk to you soon.